Good day everyone. We will discuss about event ID 1135. Cluster node JBSAG1 was removed from the active failover cluster membership. Let's get started. I'll be using this particular environment for this video. We have an availability group called JBSAG created for this particular demo. We have three replicas, JBSAG1, JBSAG2 and JBSAG3 as part of always on availability group. All these three replicas are configured using synchronous commit. We have databases JBSWiki, JBDB and Arc Reactor added to the availability group JBSAG. So this particular availability group has a listener called JBSAPP. This particular AG uses the underlying Windows cluster JBSWiki class. So what we'll do now is we will try reproducing this particular error 1135 and see what is the impact we are going to have as far as always on availability group is concerned. For this demo, we have JBSAG1 as the primary replica. So let's log into JBSAG1 and then look at the always on dashboard to confirm the configuration one more time. So if we look at it here, we have these three replicas JBSAG1, JBSAG2 and JBSAG3 as part of availability group JBSAG, and these three replicas are configured using synchronous commit. And if you see here, we have three databases here. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear the event viewer log. Since it is a demo, I'm doing it on the machine, but in case if it is a production, you shouldn't be doing this. But just to understand things, instead of going through a lot of information, I just want to look at the things that is happening at that point in time. So that is the reason I'm clearing the event viewer log, just to make sure we are not wasting much time on this. And I'm just going to clear the event viewer logs as far as system is concerned. So let me do that. So here also on JBSAG3 also, I will clear the logs. So I have cleared it. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce kind of a network issue on JBSAG3 for say 60 or 70 seconds, and then I'm going to see what impact we are going to have when we have this network issue. So now I'm going to use this particular tool to basically create this network issue. So let me do that first. So if you see here, this particular BAT file is going to terminate this tool, clumsy tool, after 60 or 60 seconds. So right now we have created this kind of an issue. If you can see here, there is a network issue. We are not able to see this particular thing moving ahead. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open a command prompt and then try pinging to JBSAG3 where we have the network issue, temporary network issue. So if we see here, we are not able to ping through JBSAG3. Let's wait for another 30 or 40 seconds because if we see here, this particular so if we see here, we have lost the connection as well. So what is happening is this network issue is happening on the JBSAG3. So let's wait for the ping response to come back, and once it comes back, we will look at the event viewer logs and also look at the availability group as what impact we have when we have this network issue, temporary network issue, say 60 to 70 seconds on on a synchronous secondary. Okay, so if we see here, we are able to ping the server back. So let's get to the server. So if we see here, we are able to get into the server. Basically, the network issue was kind of dealt with for 60 seconds. So let's look at the event viewer logs now. So let me refresh it here. So if I refresh here, what I'm able to see is we are able to see this 1135 event ID, which basically tells cluster node JBSAG2 was removed from the active failover cluster membership. So let's look at this one. This one tells like cluster node JBSAG1 was removed. So the reason why we are seeing JBSAG1 and AG2 is like when we had this network issue, JBSAG3 was trying a handshake with JBSAG1 and JBSAG2, and it was not able to reach there because we know like we created this temporary network issue, so it was not able to do it. So that is the reason we are seeing this particular error. Yeah, so it clearly tells like it is not able to reach to JBSAG1 and JBSAG2. So if you see here, it is not able to reach JBSAG1 and AG2. That's the reason we are getting this 1135 event ID messages. It is a critical message because it is not able to perform a handshake. So this is a critical message because in reality, if something has happened to any of the servers, this particular handshake that we are doing on each of the servers basically points out that there seems to be some problem. And in a real world scenario, if the servers are down, this particular message is going to play a vital role. And right now, what we'll do is like we will look at JBSAG2 and JBSAG1 also and see what message we have there. So if we see here, we have this 1135 message, and on JBSAG2, we are able to clearly see that the cluster node JBSAG3 was removed from the active failover cluster membership. Let's look at JBSAG1 as well. Let's refresh it. And then if you see here, we are seeing this 1135 message, which basically tells like AG3, JBSAG3 was removed from the active failover cluster membership. Yep. And we have one more message related to 1672, which is basically telling like cluster node AG3 has been quarantined. The node experienced 3 consecutive failures within a short amount of time and has been removed from the cluster to avoid further disruption. So if you can look at this, we can clearly understand like a temporary, maybe like 60 seconds or like say 30 seconds in that case, 30 seconds or 60 seconds of network issue is going to create a huge lot of issue as far as always on availability group is concerned. So I can clearly advise you guys that as soon as you see 1135 message, we can clearly come to a conclusion that 1135 occurs as a result of network issue. So at this point in time, whenever you see 1135 is the root cause for any RCS. For example, you have a failover as far as always on availability group is concerned, and then you are seeing an event ID of 1135. We can clearly tell that there is a temporary network issue, and we can basically involve the network team to have a look on this. And this demo is basically to provide that particular information. As soon as you see 1135, definitely there is a network issue. The network team has to look into it. What I'm going to do is like I'm going to look at the availability group here, and then see what do we have. So if we see here, there is no failover here because the problem is like the network issue happened on JBSAG3, which is basically a secondary. So there is no failover and things like that as far as always on availability group is concerned. So at least we are pretty safe on that front. So now what we'll do is like we will look at availability group dashboard. And if we see here, we are able to see a warning here, which basically tells like JBSAG3 is down. It's a matter of some more time wherein JBSAG3 is going to pick up. There is no action required as of now. In case there is a network issue still, then you might have this problem. But as of now, since the always on is having an issue right now because we had a temporary network issue as far as JBSAG3 is concerned. And if we look at cluster manager, and then let's see what happened to JBSAG3. So let's go to the cluster administrator. And we remember, I think like we looked at the message 1672, which basically informed like JBSAG3 has been quarantined. So let's look at the cluster manager, and then let's go to the nodes. And if we see here, we are able to see that this particular node is kind of quarantined right now. So that's the reason we are not able to have this added back to the availability group. And also, if you see here, this particular AG availability group is like in resolving state right now. I've been trying this for a couple of times, so that's the reason. Like after 2 or 3 failures, it went into resolving mode, and this particular node went into a quarantine state. So what we'll do now, let's go to JBSAG3 and then clear this quarantine flag. Yep. So let's go to Windows PowerShell admin, and then let's execute this particular command, which is Start-ClusterNode clear quarantine. Let's execute that and then see what happens. Once this is completed, this particular node JBSAG3 should be back online. And once it is online, I think we should be fine as far as availability group as far as JBSAG3 is concerned. So it is basically telling like joining, and the type is node. So now what we'll do is like, let's go to JBSAG1. Then if you see here, we are getting this message as joining. So let's wait for it to complete. And once this is done, I think we should be okay as far as the availability group is concerned. So let's give it some more time. Okay, it is up now. So JBSAG3, after we cleared the quarantine flag, it is up now. So let's go to our availability group here, and then let's refresh it. Let's give some more time, and then we will have a look on this. So I just refreshed the availability group folder on JBSAG3. It's just a matter of seconds, and then it should be online. So if you see here, it is showing as secondary now. It is no more resolving. Now let's look at the availability group dashboard. Then if you see here, everything seems to be fine. So we discussed about creating a temporary network issue on one of the synchronous secondary, and we saw like how we were able to see event ID 1135, which basically informed us like the nodes have been removed from the cluster because of the network issue. And after that, we were able to see like how this particular node where we had this network issue, the availability group went into resolving state, and also like this particular node was basically added to the quarantine status because we reached the quarantine threshold of 3. And we also discussed like how to remove that. And the summary for whatever we have done till now is like, as soon as you see this 1135, we will be clearly be able to understand like there is a network issue that is causing the problem as far as availability group is concerned. So now what I'm going to do is like, now we initiated this temporary network issue on JBSAG3, and then we looked at the availability group behavior. Now what we'll do is like, we will initiate this network issue on the primary replica. If we see here, JBSAG1 is the primary replica. We are logged into it. So now what I'm going to do is like, I'm going to create a network issue on the primary replica, and then we will see what is going to happen after this. Yeah. So I'm going to start it. If you see here, the timer is basically going on. So once it freezes, we will be able to ensure like there is a problem. So now we can see that this is kind of freezed. So now what we'll do is like, we will start pinging JBSAG1 where we created this temporary network issue. So we have made sure like this network issue will be there on JBSAG1, say like close to 1 minute, close to 60 seconds. So let's wait for it. And then once the server comes online back, that is once we stop that particular tool which is creating this network issue after 1 minute, and once we get into the server, we will check what is the behavior once the server comes online. And what is the impact to the availability group when we had this temporary network issue on the primary replica, and then we will take it from there. So it's a matter of some more seconds. So once, yeah, so now if we see here, we are able to ping. That means like the temporary network issue that we generated for 60 seconds is kind of done now. So if we see here, I'm able to make the connection to JBSAG1. And now if I look at the failover cluster manager, so what I'm seeing is like it is basically showing like JBSAG1 is down. Let's do a refresh here. It is still showing as down, but if you see here, what is happening is like the availability group basically failed over from JBSAG1 to JBSAG2. Let's go to the event viewer and then let's refresh the event viewer logs. And if we see here, what I'm able to see is like we are able to see 1135 event ID, and it was around 9:14:32. Like this happened when this failover basically kind of happened as soon as this 1135 occurred. So this is a common issue as far as always on availability group is concerned. Like what happens is like as soon as a failover happens, we will be going to check different logs to see what actually caused this issue. To get into this root cause analysis, we look at different logs, but as soon as you guys see like 1135 is there, and then you look at the SQL Server error log and then cluster.log, you will be able to clearly come to a conclusion that the failover basically happened due to this particular event ID 1135, wherein the cluster node was basically removed from active failover cluster membership. We will talk about the solution. It's not going to be a solution until and unless the networking team come into the picture, accept that there is a problem with network, and then give a fix. But there are some workarounds that we can put forth from the SQL Server, and that is from always on availability group end, which basically is going to increase the archive. If you have an issue on that for this particular workaround, then but there is something that we can definitely do. But the actual solution for failover due to 1135 lies with the networking team. So the main reason why I'm going for this video is like to basically inform everyone like how 1135 occurs on the database server and how it is completely independent to always on availability group and how it is related to network issue. So we basically created some temporary network issue, and then we were able to reproduce event ID 1135. And now if you look at the availability group dashboard, let's refresh it here. We can see that this has become the secondary, and if we look at the always on availability group dashboard here, you'll be able to see that JBSAG2 has become the primary. So in this case, when we had this network issue for like say 60 seconds on JBSAG1, availability group felt like there seems to be some problem with AG1, and it basically failed over to JBSAG2. In real scenario, this network issue can really cause issues wherein you will have failovers and all the applications trying to connect to this particular database server will have some issue, or whatever connections that are happening on the current primary replica will all be terminated when the failover happens, say 2 or 3 seconds. Yep. So that's for this 1135 event ID. And if you're running a Windows failover cluster with always on availability group and you see event ID 1135 in the Windows event logs, it means that a cluster node was removed from the active failover cluster membership. In other words, one of the nodes in Windows Server failover cluster that was supposed to be part of the cluster is no longer available. This event can occur for various reasons, such as hardware failure or a software issue. So basically, like right now, we are looking at this 1135 as a result of network issue. But in case if, let's say, if JBSAG2 goes down, then what happens is like the same sort of handshake happens between these nodes. And let's say JBSAG2 has gone down because of a network, because of a hardware issue. In that case, it basically basically gets this 1135, and we basically like remove it from the cluster. So that is something that we need to keep in mind. The problem is like whenever this happens, you basically have to make sure like whether the server is online after the issue has happened. And in case if the issue, in case if the server is up, then most probably it would be a network issue. So that is something that we will have to understand whether to just to differentiate whether it is a network issue or something else. Yeah, and the consequence of a node being removed from the WSFC, that is your Windows Server failover cluster, can be significant for your AGs. If you have configured your AGs with automatic failover, the AGs that were hosted on the removed node will fail over to another node in the WSFC, that is your Windows Server failover cluster. And that is what we just looked at. Like we tried creating a temporary network issue on the primary replica, and we were able to see that the failover happened. However, if you have not configured automatic failover, or if all the nodes in WSFC, that is the Windows failover cluster, are down, the AGs hosted on the removed node will become unavailable until the node is brought back online or a manual failover is initiated. So that's something we need to really look at. In case you don't have the automatic failover, then what happens is like the availability group goes into resolving mode, and until and unless the server comes online, all these databases will all be like kind of down. So now what we'll do is like we will look at different options that we can do to kind of that we can do to perform like an workaround to solve this problem. So the actual solution for this problem, at least the one that we are discussing right now, would be from the networking team to understand why we are having this temporary network glitch. It could be something like a real network issue, or if it is going to be a virtual machine, then there is a possibility due to some virtual machine issues such as like host machine having resource contention, or we are doing some VM backups, that could freeze this server, and that could cause the problem. I have included various scenarios for 1135 in my blog. I will include that blog in this particular video's description. You can have a look further. But the workaround that we can basically go for is like we can basically try changing some of the cluster settings, such as same subnet delay, same subnet threshold, cross subnet delay, and cross subnet threshold. So what we'll do now is like let's look at the values like what we have right now as far as these values are concerned. So let's go to PowerShell, and then let's look at the current value. So right now what we are seeing is like cross subnet delay is set to 1000 milliseconds, which is 1 second. Cross subnet threshold is set to 30 retries. Same subnet delay is set to 1 second again, that is 1000 milliseconds, and same subnet threshold is set to 30. So if you look at what are these values are, so same subnet delay is a parameter that refers to the delay or timeout value that is applied when a client sends a request to a server in the same subnet. This delay is used to give the server time to respond to the request before another server in the cluster process the same request. Yeah, and as far as the same subnet threshold is concerned, it basically controls how many heartbeats can be missed on the same subnet before the route is declared as unreachable. Yeah. And as far as cross subnet delay is concerned, this parameter says the delay or timeout value that is applied when a client sends a request to a server in a different subnet. It is same as same subnet delay. The difference is like the same subnet delay value is for the same subnet, but cross subnet is for when you have different subnets. Yep. And cross subnet threshold, again, it is same as same subnet threshold. The only difference is like it is for a different threshold, which basically controls how many heartbeats can be missed on a different subnet before the route is declared as unreachable. So what I'm going to do is like as a workaround till the network team basically look at what is basically happening. I'm going to increase the same subnet delay value from 1000 to say 2000. That is 2000 milliseconds, which is going to be 2 seconds. Okay, and what I'm going to do for cross subnet delay, I'm going to increase from 1 second to 4 seconds. Yeah, so let's change that. Now what we'll do is like we will query this again, and then let's look at the value. So if we see, yeah, cross subnet delay is set to 4 seconds and save subnet delay is set to 2 seconds. The important thing to note here is like the default values are there after careful testing and for a reason there. Yep, because what happens is like we need to clearly understand that changing these values, changing these recommended values, and changing these to a higher value can actually increase the recovery time objective, as there will be a delay in failover in case of a genuine SQL server or the server down scenario. Yep, and it just this particular workaround that we are putting forth just masks or delays the problem, but will never completely fix the issue. The best thing, as I advised earlier, is to find the root cause of this heartbeat failures and get it fixed. So this is something the network team or the platforms team has to take forward and then completely fix this issue. But in case if we need a temporary workaround, we know that it is a genuine network issue. We basically have to clearly explain the required stakeholders, like what will be the impact if we increase these values, and once everyone is under the same page, then what we can do is like we can increase it, but we need to be very clear that we cannot leave these values like cross subnet delay to 4 seconds and same subnet delay to 2 seconds forever. We basically have to use it temporarily till the network issues are sorted out, and once the network issues are sorted out, we will have to basically change it back to the default values of 1 second for each of these settings. So if we change that with this value of 2 seconds for same subnet delay and 4 seconds for cross subnet delay, it is not like it is going to completely solve the problem. It is going to basically delay the issue. For example, when with the default value of 1 second, we might have 1 occurrences, but when we increase it, it is going to delay the issue. That is basically might be like going to reduce it by 50% or 25%, but it is not going to completely solve the problem. If it is going to be a genuine temporary network issue that is lasting for like say 60 or 70 seconds, then this particular workaround is going to help you. But in case if it is going to be more than 2 seconds, you will still have this problem wherein failover will happen, and then you will see all these event ID 1135 on the event viewer, and basically causes issues as far as availability group is concerned. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Jai Hind.